authors are daring to go now, Madhumita. And we're talking about, of course, is the book called Dependent, Living in the Shadow of AI. The wonderful Madhumita Murgia here with us. I think that step has also earned you a non-fiction, a Women's Prize for Non-Fiction nomination. So tell us, where did this love affair start?
So it's been 10 years since I started covering AI. And really, when I started out, it was pretty fringe, very maverick pursuit. Even within the computer science community, the people who worked on AI were considered slightly crazy because it's been around, since the 50s and it's never quite worked. And in the last decade, as I started writing about it, it's moved from this very fringe topic, which was very cutting edge, to something that's part of all of our lives, whether we know it or not. I think most people have become much more aware in the last year. But the point for me of writing this book, which I started writing 2.5 years ago, was to show how it's already embedded in aspects of our lives we would barely know, like everything from sort of whether you can get a loan from your bank to government services to healthcare, but often in these invisible ways, and to kind of bring those stories to light.
Excellent. And code dependent. The title itself sort of spells out what the whole thing is going to be about. But what were your personal views? I mean, I've known people who've been in the field of AI, and they're scoffing a little at how how interested people are getting now, and how wowed they are with the concept of AI. You've been, as you said, working on it for about a decade. So what was your reaction when you started seeing this explosion of interest in AI?
Yeah, so, I think what's sort of felt magical to people about the latest trend, which I think we can kind of trace it back to ChatGPT's launch in November 2022. I say this like it's a historical date. It's barely a year ago.
Yeah.
And it was the first time, ordinary people could really literally interact with an AI model, with a software, by talking to it, using our language, not coding, not, you didn't have to learn how to be a computer software engineer. You could just speak.
Right.
And so I think seeing how, it was able to respond gave it the sense of it having some sort of intelligence behind it, which is not the case. It remains a statistical software that, works by predicting the next word. But I think it is pretty sophisticated. It has grown in leaps and bounds even within the last 2 years. The images, the videos, they're all becoming so much more realistic than even what a deep fake was when I was writing this 2-3 years ago, right? So there has been, I think, a technical shift, and because it's also become part of our daily lives in a very obvious way, it's kind of brought home to people what AI could do and what it could be. But as I say, we've already been interacting with it for years. It's part of the recommendation systems on Spotify and Netflix, all of the ads, all of the content that we see on social media. That's all brought to us through these AI systems, these algorithms that learn what we like and try and show us more of that, right?
You're literally telling the story of a story, and you're telling the story through other human stories. I think the human angle, to me, I, of course, full disclosure, I haven't read the whole book, but I've gone through a lot of it. The human interest is very, very evident in the way that you deal with AI. It's not for you, it's not just technology. It is also something that's human. And we've all seen those memes which say that, AI is supposed to be doing the Excel sheets and we are supposed to be making art. But there's always a little bit of a hesitation about the unknown. So what was the structure of the book? Tell us the process. Take us through the process of how you got the book together.
Yeah, so, AI is supposed to be doing Excel spreadsheets, but AI is somehow making art and writing words.
Yes.
So that's the conundrum that we're living through. So for me, having reported on the technology as a news journalist, I often found that we were focused on either the companies or the industry that's building it, and we kind of put on a pedestal these entrepreneurs behind these ideas, right? Like Sam Altman, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, and kind of look to them for the future. But the things that I was most fascinated by as I learned more about AI was what happens when you kind of put it out into society without warning, without planning, and how that impacts and shapes the lives of ordinary people, individuals, and communities. And those were stories I never read, either written by me or even by my peers around the world. And I felt that was the way to talk to the most number of people, to say this could be you or me. This is not necessarily a story about a corner of California, right, or
Sure.
Silicon Valley. So for me, it was first finding those 10 stories, because this is really based around these 10 people, 10 or 11, and their lives, and to find a geographic spread. So the other kind of goal for me was this must be a global book. I didn't want it to be a very Western book that is, always very Western journalists tend to be very inward focused, as I guess journalists from any
For sure.
country.
Absolutely.
So I look at India. I travel to Argentina, to Kenya, to Bulgaria, not known as a tech innovation hub really.
Yeah.
To find how technology animates societies and changes communities.
But there was also this thing about privilege. We do carry our privilege, and we do transplant that somehow into the way we see things. Was that a little difficult for you to take that step back from the privileged place of knowledge? Because you do come, we tend to take for granted what we know. So was that a little difficult for you?
Yeah, I think I did have to separate the sort of explaining the technology or talking about the business impacts, and really almost approaching this like fiction.
Right, yeah.
Sometimes I call the people in my book characters, and I have to correct myself, because they are not. They are real people who are all still living today,
Absolutely.
whose lives continue. And so it's definitely non-fiction, but I approached it by sort of seeing them as 3D people.
Sure.
And to figure out what was it like before they encountered AI, then what happened, what was that moment where they collided and something changed, and then what happened after.
Sure.
So that's kind of was how I structured the book, all the way from the individual with their livelihood, or in the case of deepfakes, it's about your body, going all the way up to China, where AI is kind of changing the lives of entire cities.
Absolutely. And what we're talking about, of course, is the book called Dependent, Living in the Shadow of AI. The wonderful Madhumita Murgia here with us, telling us how it was done. And if you've got questions, please feel free. Sarthak from Radio is my Instagram ID. Madhumita, of course, can be found on X or Twitter, whichever you choose. We choose to take a break and come right back with more questions. You stay, okay?
94.3 Radio 1.